All right, everyone, we will bring this, our December 4th meeting of the IT Committee to order. Join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. Do we have any additions or changes to our agenda?
No.
All right. I move the agenda. Support. Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. And on to our minutes for the October 2nd, 2024 meeting.
I'll move the minutes.
Support. All right. Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All right, moved and supported and moved. Very limited public comment, I'd say.
Very limited.
All right, we'll move on from there. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. And on to communications.
Afternoon, Commissioners. So for some active communications, the 17th County Newsletter will be out the week after the board meeting. As you may have noticed, this month we shifted the date to better reflect any major action by the board within the newsletter itself. Prior to that, the newsletter mostly was a vehicle for separate tax limitation information, and so I'm shifting it to be more board-centric after the major board meeting, which it kind of already was, but it'll be a little more prescient if it's that close to the board meetings. There was no active paid advertising at any digital spaces in October or November. Most of our content and pushouts were about the separate tax limitation as expected, at least in October and through that first week of November. Since then, a lot of our content has been usurped by resource recovery and Parks and Recreation events, promotions, and different things. Parks and Recreation is doing a wonderful job with their communications on their social media as well, which makes my job a lot easier. So that has been very helpful. String Light Collection, speaking of resource recovery, the 5th year we've done this. That event is live as of December 1st through the end of January. I didn't realize the amount of questions and traction I'd get online from that after we started promoting it. We are interviewing later this week, Resource Recovery and I, to promote that, I think with Fox 47. I attended a ribbon cutting event in the village of Vermontville to commemorate the completed work on their park, which the Parks Community Grant partially funded. We also had the youth facility expansion event. Thank you to all that attended that in October. And finally, my office organized a press conference for the sheriff where he discussed the shift change within his office on November 14th. And another event commemorating the art installation at the youth facility is in the planning stages with LEAP, which is actually going to shift to more of just a promotional piece online versus an actual event. They just want to kind of celebrate the fact that some of the artwork on that cube the kids helped solidify. So any questions on any of that active comm stuff? Quickly moving on then to social media. We saw the last 2 months 59 new followers, which is pretty on par with what we've expected, maybe a little slower. Content interactions have dipped back down a little bit below standard levels where we're averaging around 5,000 to 7,000 in reach per month, but Meta Insights has changed, which is the functionality, how I actually view insights on social media. They now are calculating views, and it's kind of shifted a little bit with what that actually means. So creators now, we have a single distribution metric versus like breakdowns of reach, views, content interactions and stuff. It's gonna slowly start to consolidate more and more. So these numbers are actually a little skewed. Some of the views actually didn't start to get picked up until like a little bit into October. And then November, I think it was kind of the same thing. And they sent a message out kind of referencing that disparity. So we'll see what that looks like, but it should make things easier to understand, frankly. But we are lower in some of that reach, which you can kind of expect, as you can see in the graph that covers October there. We had a lot of separate tax limitation promotions and shares and organic posts in some of these group forums, as well as we had some folks, volunteers, whether that was staff or just other entities sharing out stuff organically about the county or its proposal. And so you see spikes kind of all throughout the month there. November, you see a big spike around election, and then it kind of dips off. We are getting people maybe a little bit sick of hearing from us, as we kind of expected was going to happen, and often does happen, and especially around the holidays where people are a little less active, if you will. So that's kind of social media for us, but again, most of those interactions were that tax limitation proposal, which we're starting to supplant some of that information and promotions with other things that are a little maybe less heavy for folks. And so we should hopefully start to see a few more spikes in that, but as the board takes more action through this financial crisis, we'll see what kind of interaction we get online. As for the website, there's a little typo on my report here, but the county website saw roughly 61,000 users in October and November, which I actually expected a bigger spike through November with the election and election results. That is still one of the top viewed pages in a very short period of time, as seen in the table there, but they're still just a little less. But I will say that the separate tax limitation proposal also was a big spike for October, and then that kind of dropped off after the election, and so you kind of, there's that dip there. But that table represents both months combined when you look at the active pages, and I will say we are averaging exactly 58 seconds per interaction on users that are using these pages, which is sort of what we were expecting and wanting to see start to reflect with that website update. So we'll see. I'm going to work with tech services, and Eric, I haven't bugged you about this yet, but I'll inevitably bug you and Liz. Shout out Liz. I have to do that every time. But about how we can start benchmarking specific content, because our website and government websites are a little trickier. If this was even a nonprofit or something, a smaller entity with less information and less services and less access, it's going to depend on what that service is with how long you want somebody on those pages. And it's a very strange, I did a little research, watched a few webinars on looking at government websites and how to more cleanly communicate, because that has been a struggle across the board, across the country, and on how to do this a little more cleanly and how to benchmark it, which is how to compare us to others. So we need to find a way through Google Analytics and also Civic Plus on looking at, when we look at whether it's public case search, elections, online services, we need to set a benchmark for each page. We need to set a benchmark for how long we want people interacting with that content and how we can drive them to what they're looking for a little faster. So basically, long story short, we got some work to do on that. But the general idea of what I expected is starting to bear fruit on the time spent on that search and such, shrinking down more and more. So we'll take that as a slight win, but we still have work to do. Any questions on the website or social media stuff?
Don't see any.
All right, media, just some of the major media over the last 2 months. Obviously, the election, the sheriff's office, and the separate tax limitation took a bulk of our sort of PR space. I spent most days getting asked questions about the sheriff's office and the separate tax limitation. As expected, that was kind of my world for the last couple of months, especially with the separate tax limitation. Our goal was to try and have at least 1 to 2 a week coverage for that proposal, sharing out information with any given major news source, which we exceeded for the most part. So not all of those things were necessarily positive coverage, and not all of them I was maybe on background versus being interviewed, or commissioner maybe on background being interviewed. But I'm happy to say that we did blanket the airwaves and got that information out. It couldn't have gone much better when you look at the media aspect of it. Other major things, the youth facility, Delta Township Supervisor, I'm still receiving, it's been a few weeks now, but I still get quite a few calls and inquiries about that, about the county's role in that, the clerk's office's role in that. So I'm working with Clerk Bosworth on how we can structure those interactions. It's been kind of a lot of, we're not doing anything with this, but regardless. So that's kind of the bulk of the news. It's mostly the proposal. That was kind of everything. November has been fairly quiet news-wise. A couple inquiries about Potterville, a couple inquiries obviously about the sheriff's office. And I know that tomorrow at the Special Ways and Means meeting, we will have press here. And so if you are coming to that meeting, be prepared that a reporter may try and corner you. You never know. And if that's the case and you don't want to talk to them, throw a pencil at me and I will run over here. Any questions on that with the media?
I don't see any for that either.
All right, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Logan. Eric, I think you're under Technology Services.
All right, thank you. An update, GIS. John Merrick has been selected to serve on Michigan's newly established GIS Advisory Board. This is a 17-member board representing a diverse range of GIS professionals from across the state. This provides valuable valuable guidance to the State Geographic Information Officer. Their focus includes addressing local government needs, developing fiscal strategies, setting standards and best practices, promoting education, and more. John's involvement on the board will enable him to directly advocate for Eaton County's GIS priorities, challenges at the state level. Key topics of interest include NextGen 911, the MySail imagery program, and survey remonumentation, among others. His participation will undoubtedly be enhanced, or will enhance Eaton County's ability to leverage GIS for improved services and strategic initiatives. So congratulations to John. Other GIS news, last month we submitted our letter of commitment to Tri-County Regional Planning Commission for our partnership in the aerial imagery program. It's part of a Tri-County initiative. So Eaton, Ingham, and Eaton counties, we do this every 5 years. That's part of our rotation for our aerial imagery update. That flight is scheduled to take place, granted ground conditions, atmospheric conditions are favorable. It'll happen sometime between March and April when, if there's no snow on the ground. So that project is underway officially now. Any questions regarding GIS? Okay. Want to address the power outage that we experienced here on November 4th, the afternoon of the 4th and of the 5th. Technology Services work closely with Facilities Management, Central Dispatch, the County Clerk's Office, and I want a special shout out to Eric Hafner in the Sheriff's Department. He was very integral in coordinating efforts for off-hours security of the facility here, so big shout out to him. Basically, I think Ella Gardner with Emergency Management addressed this at last month's Public Safety Committee, but we worked with Diana in her office earlier this year to acquire a portable generator and some battery backups in the event that this happened. And it just so happened here, the first election after that. So, part of our, COOP planning, continuing operations plan, everything fell in order. So we were able to quickly, I think around 7 o'clock, my phone started going off on the morning of the 5th. That power, was non-functional here at the county facility, specifically in the courthouse. So we come in and set up a portable generator, worked with Kelly, with Central Dispatch to bring over their communications trailer, which has a larger generator than what was purchased through Emergency Management. So we wanted to use that because it had a longer run time in the battery. We didn't have to tend to it, fuel it, and it would just last longer. One less thing that, distraction that we had for operations that day. So Kelly and her team were fantastic at bringing that resource over and getting things hooked up and functioning. Some things that we identified as vulnerabilities, we always use this as a learning opportunity. What can we do better? One of the vulnerabilities, when the power's out here, we don't have cooling functionality for our data center closets here in the facility. This has been something, this isn't a new thing, but this is something that we have addressed in the past, and it's something that's part of, a future capital improvement project. We did the best we could, putting fans in place, tried to exhaust, the warm air out of those facilities. Luckily, it happened in the month of November, and, it's cool. So we're able to accommodate and move forward. But just something to consider, that is a vulnerability that we have here. In a power outage, we can't keep those cool. So it is something that we need to address in the future. Any questions about the power outage and our involvement? Okay. To give you an update on the Delta Township substation renovation, we started the installation of equipment in there this month. We had a meeting on Monday with the contractor, ACD.net, who is their internet service provider for that facility. They have their internet service ran to the building now. It is not terminated in the data rack. That is scheduled to occur in the next 2 weeks. Technology Services was slated to start installing server equipment, networking equipment in there the week of Thanksgiving. Upon that schedule coming to fruition, determined they did not have power established in that room yet, so that's delayed. So possibly next week, we'll be installing equipment and getting things, a network stood up in there for them. So basically things that are contingent on that network being stood up, the door controller, secure access for the building as far as card swipes, that's contingent on us getting the network stood up as well as phone communications in there. So hopefully by next week, in 2 weeks, we'll have a full network in that facility. Based on what I know today, the contractor is set to have a handoff to that building to the township the first or second week of January. And I believe as it stands now, the lease for the temporary substation expires the first part of February of 2025. So everything's going to happen really, really quick for that transition. Any questions about that? Okay. Give you an update on our work with Barre Eaton District Health Department. Since we didn't meet last month, I didn't report on this, but we were able to successfully move them to a new phone system for them. That's a project that's been in the budget for a while for them. It's part of getting them off of county's infrastructure, getting them stood up on their own infrastructure. It also plays into the portability for their portable work staff. It's something that's easier to manage for us. It's easier to manage for them. It can shed a little bit of the workload off of our plate onto them to manage their own voicemail and greetings and things of that nature. So it's a good fit for both parties. And it's a cost savings as well. So it's something that we definitely can look into for county operations in the future. Also met 2 weeks ago with administration to discuss, Health Department administration to discuss technology goals for this fiscal year. And some of the marquee things that we're working on or focusing on is cleaning up legacy systems that they have, old architecture, old systems that they have in place, working on retention schedules, cleaning up old files that exist digitally, and removing those off of our digital footprint to save space and to basically prolong the use of our digital storage that we have in place now, both for us and for the health department. So working on those goals, addressing software licensing needs that they have as staffing changes to make sure that we're current, we're projecting future software needs that they may have, transitioning in a couple applications to hosted environments where it's off of the county infrastructure. So it's allowing them to have a little bit more independency from county infrastructure here, and that's kind of our goal going forward for them. Any questions for the health department? Okay. Last thing I had is just some work that we've been doing here. We've been working for a while now of trying to clean up our own legacy applications. This has been a process that we've had in place for a long time, really since the transition of Jeff Parshall, moving off, retiring here as director. Jeff was, phenomenal here for 25 years. He was our in-house programmer, did phenomenal things. But when Jeff left, we lost that institutional knowledge for a lot of those applications. So, over the course of the last 3.5 years, we've been chipping away at moving away off of some of those legacy applications and moving those to other paid for solutions that we've had in place for a while now. So I'm happy to report that we've knocked off a couple, 3 or 4 other of those applications now, and we're really down to just a couple of those vulnerabilities that we still have of supporting those legacy applications. So that's a big milestone for our office. There's a machine that some of us will know. It's an AS400. I officially unplugged the network cord on that.
I missed that.
I know you do. So that's a big milestone in our operations that we can officially start weaning off of that system now. So I'm excited for that. In other news, courtroom docket displays. You'll see those in the lobby of the courthouse where it displays the judges and their cases. That's a system that we've historically managed in-house here. Talking with the state of Michigan, they actually offer a solution at no cost to the county courts. We're demoing that right now as we speak, and I suspect we'll be transitioning to that probably before the first of the year. So we're working with court staff right now to basically mimic the exact template that you see on the displays now. So really when we switch it over, really nobody should know the difference. And it's just one less thing that we have to maintain and operate here. It's all handled within the court staff. So that's a big win for us.
No cost.
I do too. I do too. It's another server that we can take offline, and it's another thing that we don't have to patch and maintain. It's all handled by court staff and court administration at the state of Michigan. So it's great. Another court news, we've been in coordination with the court administrator, Amy Etzel. We've finally reached a date to transition their their circuit court case management from with an old AS400 system to a multi-tenant system. This is all at the state of Michigan, but this is a couple-year project that's been in the works. So we're excited on February 6th of 2025, that is the cutover date for that for circuit court for their case management. And then depending on the success of that, I have no doubt that it will be successful. It will be successful. June of 2025, district court will be making that migration as well. So both courts then will be on a modern application for case management. Been told by the state of Michigan that don't hold me to this number, but I want to say there's over 40 courts that are in the state of Michigan that have already migrated to this. So we're not a beta tester for this in any means. We're for once following suit and not being the guinea pigs. But that concludes my report.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric? All righty. Item number 8, miscellaneous. Do we have any miscellaneous today?
No, we do not.
We do not. Any limited public comment? Seeing none, we are adjourned till January of 2025. Thank you very much.